very, very much for that. And actually, as it happens, it was raining in California when I left, and I almost got a sunburn in Scotland. So, actually, it's been wonderful. And I want to just say thank you for the hospitality. It has really been an amazing experience to be hosted, and especially to the Tates. I do actually feel like I'm kind of an adopted member of the family now. So, we'll see you next year. No, I'm just kidding. But really appreciate it. And I've had the opportunity over this last few days to visit. I went to Glasgow, went to the Mitchell Library, and saw some amazing Burns artifacts in their Burns collection. I went to Edinburgh all day, walking around today, was able to see the Burns Memorial, and it's just incredible to be here. And I appreciate that amazing introduction as well. I'll try to live up to the billing. We'll see how it goes, but I do want to say we have had such a unique and special bond, the Rotary Club of Moraga and the Rotary Club of Tranent, and I'm just so honored and grateful for this opportunity. The invitation was amazing. Any reason to come to Scotland, so you didn't really have to twist my arm, but not only to be here in Scotland, but to be able to pay tribute to the Bard of Scotland. This is special in many ways, actually. I have a wee bit of Scottish ancestry, and this tie here, I'm as a steward of Butte, and I'm a member of the Caledonian Club of San Francisco, and we do a Burns supper as well. So that alone was special, but I never thought that I'd attend a Burns supper in Scotland, and I certainly never thought I would deliver the immortal memory at a Burns supper in Scotland. So researching for the speech, I learned so much about Robert Burns and the many connections actually between Scotland and America. And I want to apologize right now in advance for any accidental factual omissions or errors. Wikipedia is never wrong, right? So it should be okay. And please forgive my pronunciations. You might have noticed that I have more of a West Coast California accent than a traditional Scots dialect. But as you'll see, this immortal memory may be a little different than what you're used to. I did want to weave a theme highlighting not only the life and accomplishments of good old Rabbie Burns, but also the true American appreciation and connection to Scotland's Bard. I mean, you did invite an American after all, right? So I found amazing scholarship on that specific topic, and a book called Connected Lives and Legends provided a lot of compelling information and anecdotes to help me research this speech, including this one. I came across a story from Edinburgh in the early 19th century where they were erecting a memorial to Burns, and the city fathers asked Sir Walter Scott for advice on the inscription. He said to simply write Burns. Who doesn't know the rest? And while that may be true, especially in this group, I do want to go ahead and talk a little bit about his biography. Robert Burns, of course, was born on January 25th, 1759, in the Scottish county of Ayr. And although he grew up rather poorly, there was an insistence on education, and he had 3 short periods of formal study. Burns worked on a farm, and he tried his hand as a flax dresser. I had to look that one up. And he was a surveyor. Once he grew into manhood, he was described as handsome, with dark eyes and a high forehead, and as we'll see, a bit of a ladies' man, but he was an avid reader and involved in debating societies and other clubs. One of the interesting clubs that I read about was the Tarbolton Bachelors Club, which I was surprised to learn that in addition to the membership fee, a man had to be a, quote, professed lover of one or more of the female sex. Burns ultimately fathered 12 children by several different women, so I think he had that requirement covered. But Burns was ultimately known for his amazing literary accomplishments. Burns started rhyming at the age of 15 and started serious poetry around 1784. His first published work, poems chiefly in the Scottish dialect, in 1786, was met with success and acclaim, and he became a household name. Even then, he was described to dress neatly but plainly, and an Edinburgh society woman was reported to have said that she, quote, never met a man whose conversation so completely carried her off her feet. And in 1791, in one single day, he wrote Tam O'Shanter, and eventually was credited with compiling, writing, or improvising nearly 400 Scots songs. Many of his phrases were turned into instant proverbs. Auld Lang Syne was reworked brilliantly into a popular contemporary rendition, which I can tell you, Americans to this day sing at midnight on New Year's Eve. Burns was a passionate lover of liberty. He wrote an anti-slavery poem called The Slave's Lament, and after the American Revolution, Burns gave public toast to George Washington, and even composed an ode for George Washington's birthday in 1794. The admiration was mutual because the New York edition of Burns' poems was found in George Washington's private library. John G. Dow, a Scottish immigrant to Madison, Wisconsin, said that Burns was known and loved in America as much as in his native land, and he attributed this to Burns' celebration of democracy. Tragically, Burns died young in 1796 at the age of 37. Thousands of tributes poured in, including many from America, to Scotland's national bard. As late as 1925, an American consul to Edinburgh told a gathering of Scots that, quote, "Robert Burns is yours as well as ours. His philosophy is woven into our Bill of Rights, and his vision of a man's estate is part and parcel of our American ideals of democracy and justice." There is even a Rotary connection. At the Rotary Convention in Boston in 1933, none other than Paul Harris paid tribute and said that Burns' philosophy embraced the true meaning of Rotary. And Paul Harris's Scottish lassie, his wife Jean, was born in Edinburgh. And after Paul passed away, she later moved back to Scotland and is buried in Newington Cemetery. Many Americans took the opportunity to highlight their respect for Scotland as a people. An American editor was quoted as saying, "Americans greatly admired the scientific and literary achievements of Scotland and praise Edinburgh as a metropolis of genius and learning." In Atlanta, Georgia, in the US, to this day, there is a life-size replica of Burns' first home. And in my area of San Francisco, there is a statue of Robert Burns that still stands. Now, during my research, I actually found a beautiful artifact that testifies to the popularity and appreciation Americans had for Burns, even 100 years after his death. This is a beautiful book, a genuine book, called The Poetical Works of Robert Burns, published in Philadelphia in the 1800s. Now, other than showing that Burns had such an impact even 100 years after his death and even in America, my favorite part of this is the inscription. When I was researching, I found this, I had to have it. It's a beautiful book. The Gothic, 19th century, it's just an absolute beautiful book. But this inscription is amazing. It says, "John Christie, from his loving daughter Jeannie, many happy returns of the day, February 24th, 1888. What that told me, this was published in Philadelphia. So in all likelihood, here we have in 1888, a daughter in America giving a book of Burns' poetry to her father as a gift. What an amazing illustration of the wide influence Burns had, and again, how woven into the fabric of the culture he became, even in America. And on behalf of the Rotary Club of Moraga, I would like to donate this book to the Rotary Club of Tranent to keep as a token of our appreciation and friendship. Beautiful. Now, in the 19th century, there was one American in particular, arguably the most influential American of all time, that was known to admire Burns and quote him by heart. The President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Growing up, Lincoln learned many of Burns' poems, and Lincoln's clerk in Springfield has said that Lincoln could quote Burns by the hour. Lincoln himself attended a Burns supper in Springfield and personally offered a toast to the bard. And the men do share some interesting connections. Both were sons of farmers. Both tried a number of professions, including farming and surveying. Both were prodigious readers, and both had a strong sense of the supernatural and a profound belief in equality. And really, Burns' old clay biggin and Lincoln's log cabin were perhaps not all that different. Both were a symbol of their nation. And in modern times, to the sharp observer, a visit to the Lincoln family home in Springfield continues to show this Burns-Lincoln connection. Tucked away into the northeast corner of the parlor when you first walk in, one of the first things hundreds of thousands of tourists see every year is a bust of Robert Burns. Lincoln's admiration for Burns never wavered. During gatherings at the White House while president, Lincoln would frequently read aloud from Burns, and the Scots dialect didn't seem to bother him in the least. On January 24th, 1864, keep in mind this is right at the end of the American Civil War, but it was not over, Lincoln took the time to quickly pen a note to be read at the Washington, D.C. Burn Supper. Lincoln's note said, quote, "I can say nothing worthy of Burns' generous heart and transcendent genius. Thinking of what he has said, I cannot say anything worth saying. This is the man who wrote the Gettysburg Address. This is high praise." And one of the last Burns references Lincoln ever made was just before his death. He was reciting to his longtime secretary, Hayes, the last verse of the Lament for James, Earl of Glencairn. And I'm just going to read the last few sentences of the verse. "The mither may forget the bairn that smiles sae sweetly on her knee, but I'll remember thee, Glencairn, and all that thou hast done for me." Lincoln is then said to have commented that Burns never touched a sentiment without carrying it to its ultimate expression and leaving nothing further to be said. And with that, I will leave nothing further to be said, other than a toast to the immortal memory of Robert Burns.
Well, I'm sure you all agree that was an excellent Immortal memory. And we understood every word.
Yeah, very good.
And this very, very generous gift you've given us is absolutely tremendous. We can't thank you enough, and I can assure this will be treasured very much, and we'll look after this. Thank you, that's really very, very touching to have that. Thank you very, very much. One of the things is, when somebody does an immortal memory, everybody, does give a good round of applause and wordplay. And I think the fact that Brian has researched it so much and looked into it shows all credit to yourself, sir, because how much you valued coming here and doing this tonight. And I think it's so appreciated that we'd like to show a little bit of appreciation to you. We've got your plate, cheese and biscuits. This is a little personal gift from each of you.
Oh, thank you.
I know you don't drink alcohol, so it's a bottle of Iron Brew.
Oh.
Thank you. You didn't have time to go to a local distillery and get Glenfinchy, so that's a bottle of Glenfinchy for
you
you, which
very
we hope
much.
you'll enjoy.
Thank you. I certainly will.
Angus Patterson, you come forward, please.
Aberfeldy, Robert Burns wrote about the bricks of Aberfeldy. And as well as I'll tell you, every time I go out a wee bit of weed, I'll pick it up, grab it and take it home. So I did, and I made pens and things. And on the bricks of Aberfeldy, we made you a pen. And the base is Indian mahogany.
Wow. That's amazing. Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah,
You need to write a thank you note now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Angus. Jim Tate, can I ask you to come forward? I'm not doing all the work. Jim, would you like to present this to Brian, and you can explain exactly our thoughts behind that one?
Brian, this is a quaich, which is a drinking vessel, and we would like to present this to the Rotary Club of Moraga as the President's quaich, to be handed from president to president, and perhaps a wee dram on the installation. If you take it out, wheel wrapped up. It's inscribed, "The President's Quaich, presented by the Rotary Club of Tranent, 2022. And underneath it says, "Lie for it," which is the motto of Tranent. No doubt you'll Google "Lie for it."
Thank you very much. That's awesome. This is a new tradition that we're going to do it. That's awesome. Very good. Beautiful.
And one final thing which we would like to do as a club for you is because we've got to know you really well. You know, we're doing the Zooms, and it's a wonderful club to go into Moraga because as soon as you appear on the Zoom, everybody says hi and talks and things like that, and it's really wonderful. But Brian has been quite an inspiration to us as president when he's president of Moraga, and as a personal thank you from us as a club to you, we would like to give you honorary membership of the Rotary Club of Tranent.
Thank you.
So, please accept that's it, I promise. But you can see all very well deserved. And please take our very best wishes back to California with you.
Well,
And
absolutely.
you know, it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now